We have our principal, Mr. Jagels, joining us today. And my first question is, the county is considering making a few changes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think as a nation, we're suspending students at an alarming high rate, students that need to be in school. And so part of it's looking at how we're suspending, how often we're suspending, and why we're suspending, and putting some things in place. One of the initiatives for next year is creating in-school suspensions, still holding kids accountable, but keeping them in school. The suspension option's still there, it still exists. Here's just another way that schools can be creative with discipline.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Restorative Justice program?
What I really like about restorative justice versus suspension, if you suspend a student, they go home, they eventually come back, but they're coming back to the same problem they were suspended for. Nothing was really fixed. With restorative justice, it really makes you sit down and put pieces back together.
What do you think would be the biggest benefit to the teachers?
Well, I think first of all, teachers do a great job of building relationships here. And so I think for me, it's another tool in the toolbox to help continue to build relationships, help continue to foster community within the classroom. We've used, RJ, restorative justice, a couple times in classrooms with pretty good success. If you look at the classroom, it is a community. And sometimes students disrupt that community, and it not only affects the teacher and that particular student, but it affects the whole class. And so when something happens that does that, this practice kind of puts those pieces back together to allow the class to keep moving.
So do you think there's a line?
The measures that are still in place remain in place. And so, I think what people need to feel is, number one, you need to feel safe coming to school. Teachers need to feel safe in the classroom. Students need to feel safe walking in the building. And there's a certain line that if crossed, certainly there's action that can be taken, not only from a police perspective, but pretty severe discipline consequences based on the student's rights and responsibilities.
Do you think this will increase the safety in our schools?
I think it will increase the relationships that are already established. It'll help continue and foster stronger relationships, possibly. And so the goal with any circle process is to build community so that we don't have these discipline problems. So my goal would be to continue to establish the family love and respect. What would be great is if students would take responsibility for their own behavior. If there was a realization, if they realized, wow, what I'm doing is not only impacting myself and impacting my teacher, it's also impacting my classroom and ultimately impacting the school. And so for me, it's getting every student to realize you're not just harming yourself, you're harming this environment. And I think if we all took responsibility and looked at it from that perspective, I think we're going to build a stronger school community.
So in one big thought, if you could sum all of restorative justice up, what comes to your mind?
I think for me, it's really two questions. What was the harm and what do you need to do to put pieces back together again? It's looking at, I think we can all relate back to a time when we were students where there might have been a pretty big disruption in the classroom. So an example of this program would be going back into that classroom where you experienced that disruption, getting everyone to sit down and saying, okay, here was the harm, what do we need to do to all feel good about being in here again? Right. You would each get a turn because you're each part of that community, and you're able to kind of say, this is how this impacted me and what I need moving forward. I need to feel safe in my classroom. I need to know that I'm supported as a student. I need to know that when things are disruptive, that we can sit down and have a conversation about things in the end so that we can all learn and move forward towards graduation.
Well, thanks for having us today, Mr. Jagels.
Eugenie, thank you very much.
Okay.